midnight screams.
You know something? After all these years on the job, you'd think I'd be jaded. But when an old woman calmly strolls into the lobby with half of her head missing, I have to admit, it still makes me jump. Luckily, I have enough experience now to hide my reaction. I pretended not to see a thing, even as she looked at me with her remaining eye and spoke in perfectly enunciated English, despite half her mouth being gone. Her entire left side was just a tangled ruin of teeth, bone, and what looked like ground meat. At least she couldn't feel it. She didn't even seem to realize anything was wrong. "Sir," she asked, her voice trembling, I think I'm lost. I have to find my husband. I have to." I rose to my feet knowing the drill. Our guests, having just walked through the endless, opaque fog right outside the doors, are rarely in their right minds. If I was lucky, I could get her into the elevator before she realized she was dead. "Shh. Don't you worry, ma'am. You're not lost. You're right where you need to be." I offered a reassuring smile and gently took her hand. "This way, please." She shuffled along beside me as I led her patiently across the lobby, ignoring the faint smell of burnt rubber that still clung to her. She marveled at the marble columns, the velvet carpets, the fountain adorned with bronze angels. "Oh, this place is beautiful. They just don't build them like this anymore," she whispered. "You know, I think my husband and I came here once. A long, long time ago. Before you were even born, I imagine. Yes, that's it. I'm sure of it now. It's just as I remember. Didn't this place close down?" I had to change the subject, distract her, before her mind cleared and the memory of her death came rushing back. I always felt a pang of guilt for the lie, but it was easier for everyone this way. It did, which is why your husband arranged a very special anniversary surprise with called Us, I said. "He's waiting for you, right this way." She blinked. "Is it our anniversary today?" she said. Oh dear, I've forgotten again. How silly of me." Finally, we reached the elevator bank. All but one had been stripped clean, leaving only empty, gaping shafts. The last one, every time I saw it, made me hold my breath. Though deceptively ordinary on the outside, its doors were always wide open, as if waiting for something lost to wander in. As we approached, I glanced at the floor indicator beside it, a knot of tension forming in my stomach. Then, an arrow lit up, an arrow pointing up. I let out a silent sigh of relief. I led her into the car, and she suddenly seemed nervous to leave my side. What floor is he on?" she asked. "What room?" "Don't you worry about a thing. It's all been taken care of. This elevator will take you exactly where you need to go," I said. "Don't be nervous. It's a wonderful place. You'll see. I think you're going to like it very much." With that, I slid the lattice gate shut, pushed the lever on the speed controller, and the lobby filled with the groaning, rattling sound of the elevator's ascent until she was gone. Needless to say, this is the strangest job I've ever had. I should have been suspicious from the start. I mean, who in the 2022 still hires a manual elevator operator? But the pay was too good to turn down. That old woman was a perfect example of an easy guest. I was a little curious, though, since she'd been a guest of the hotel before. I'd only heard vague stories about this place back when it was open to the public. Some kind of luxury resort from when this city still had a real middle class. The story goes that this one elevator never worked right, but no one ever fixed it. Maintenance plans fell through. Repair schedules were postponed. Inspections were misfiled. Paperwork lost. Mechanics called in sick. It was as if some higher power was intervening to keep anyone from looking too closely. Rumor had it, the night janitor once reported seeing the mangled ghosts of the dead walking into the hotel late at night, getting into the elevator, and vanishing to God knows where. But they wrote him off as a crank. The hotel is abandoned now, and it's just me in the elevator. It's a cushy gig, to be fair. But of course, not every guest is as easy as the old woman. The worst cases I see coming. I keep up with the news for a reason. And when I saw his face in the paper, my heart sank. A gaunt old man, a long, scraggly beard, a haunted look in his eyes, pictured in gray above the headline. Former football coach and suspected pedophile shot dead provoking police. I immediately prayed, "Oh God, please don't send him to me. I don't want to see his face." But of course, I was never that lucky. In the middle of the night, he stumbled through the doors. At least he wasn't mangled like some of the others. He just reeked of alcohol, and his chest was a bloody mess of 3 or 4 bullet holes. But there was a wild, almost animalistic look in his eyes. I sprang to my feet. "Good evening, sir." I forced a plastic smile. "Your room is right upstairs. We have everything prepared just the way you like it, if you'll follow me to the elevator." He just stood there, blinking dumbly as I approached. But the moment I touched him, he shoved my hand away. "Get off me!" he hissed. I staggered back, surprised by the violence in his eyes. "Where am I? What is this?" I had to hold the smile. "You're here for the conference, sir," I stammered. "If you'll just come with me." But he staggered away, muttering and clutching his head as if trying to wring out old memories. Something was there. He could feel it, but it was just out of reach. Then he stopped, turned to look at me, and his eyes were ice cold. "I'm dead. I'm dead, aren't I? This is it." I fought down a wave of panic. "Sir, that's absurd. You're being delusional. Please." I reached out to place a calming hand on his shoulder. "Stay away from me," he roared. "Where is this? Who are you? Who are you really? A demon? Are you trying to trick me? Trying to—" "Yes." His voice trailed off as he looked down at the marble floor, mesmerized by his own reflection. Staring at the bullet holes in his chest, he reached out, touched the wounds, and realized his body was numb, a profound coldness seeping into his bones. The gig was up, but I made one last, desperate attempt, tears welling in my eyes. "Please, sir, there's no need for this," I whispered. "I'm just asking you to get in the elevator." He looked from me to the waiting open car, and then, in a flash, my back hit the floor and his hands were around my throat. My lungs screamed for air, but his thumbs pressed into my windpipe, nearly crushing it. His hands were freezing, like blocks of ice, and he was growling like an animal. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know where that thing is going to take me?" Then a flicker of sadness crossed his face, and his voice dropped. "God, it wasn't my fault. I don't deserve this. It was them. I couldn't control it. You can't blame me. You can't. That moment of distraction was all I needed." My fumbling hand found a broken piece of a marble angel statue, and I swung it with all my might against his temple. He crumpled to the floor, and I rolled over, coughing and gagging, gulping in sweet air. It felt like cool water on my burning throat, my shriveled lungs inflating again. The bastard. The sick, sick bastard. I had to hurry. Before he came to, I hooked my arms under his and dragged him across the floor toward the elevator as he groaned and twitched, half-conscious. Sure enough, as I got close, the light beside the car glowed to life. The arrow was pointing down. Good. Riddance, I thought, but I wasn't. Scared of him, not really. Usually, when I send someone down, I have to remind them, please pull the gate shut on your way out. My boss's orders. If the door is left open, something might follow them back up, desperate to escape the endless dark. But it was too late for that. I had to get him in there while he was unconscious. And even if he were awake, he wasn't the type to follow instructions. So I sat there for hours, for the rest of my shift, my eyes glued to the elevator door, waiting. In my hand, I clutched a small button my boss had given me for emergencies, ready to press it the instant the door opened, if something inhuman was inside. My heart hammered against my ribs when I heard the familiar groan. The elevator was returning. I held my breath as the car slid into view, its dim yellow light spilling through the lattice gate into the dark room, revealing nothing. It was empty. I let out a long breath, even laughed a little. Maybe my luck was turning around after all. But then, as I pulled the creaking old gate open, I noticed something. The dim red glow of the single light bulb inside the car. I slowly looked up and realized the entire ceiling of the elevator was made of a glistening, pulsating meat. Innumerable eyes swam through the viscera, all of them staring down at me. You see, demons don't have a specific form. They are pure, shifting, sliding, mutating chaos. The thing slithering down towards me had a goat's head one moment, then a cluster of newborn infants' heads the next. Then it was my mother's face. Then the forms of creatures that had never walked this earth, had never known the sun. It shrieked with what sounded like a million voices at once, the echo of every damned soul reverberating up its throat. I screamed, weeping as it reached for me with a multitude of hands, claws, hooves, and hungry mouths. My skin was crawled over by the gaze of countless eyes, some as small as a maggot's, others bigger than my own head. By some miracle, I stumbled back just before one of the writhing hands could seize me by the throat. "Oh my God!" I shrieked, scrambling away on my hands and knees. I couldn't hear myself think over the monster's impossible, high-pitched screech, a thing that couldn't be classified as sound. Oh, Jesus. Sweet Jesus. Oh God, the button. Where is it? I had it a second ago. Oh God, I must have dropped it. Is it over by that thing? With all my clumsy fumbling, it should have had me, but it seemed hampered by its own chaotic form, struggling to move as its legs kept melting into tentacles, then faces, then more eyes underneath. It had managed to solidify one enormous arm, which it was using to drag its massive, ever-changing bulk toward me. There, across the lobby, the button was perched right on the edge of a stripped-out, empty elevator shaft. To my horror, it looked like it was about to tumble into the abyss. I lunged for it, but the monster grabbed my ankle, and I screamed as it twisted, nearly snapping the bone. I felt myself being dragged backward, something wet, like I was being shoved, foot first, between two massive, hungry jaws. "No! God, no!" I yelled. "Oh, please! I was a primal thing now, a creature fighting the claws of a hungry predator, scratching, screaming, howling and flailing, fighting for every inch, until finally, my fist slammed down on the button just a moment before it slid off the edge and was gone. The instant I pressed it, the lobby was consumed by a blinding light. An angel is the visual opposite of a demon. Where one is rabid chaos, the other is absolute order. Not raw flesh, but perfect mathematics. Spiraling structures woven from sacred geometry. Fibonacci spirals and Metatron's cubes and cerebric arithmological constructs that humanity has yet to classify. Forms beyond imagination, all in a color that was somehow brighter than white, radiating a brilliance that was almost too much for the eye to perceive. It was beautiful, glorious, magnificent, but I couldn't look at it for more than a second. It was so far beyond me that my mortal mind ached just from the momentary effort of trying to comprehend it. If it was painful for me, for the demon it was agony. The creature shrieked as it was bathed in the holy light, flailing and convulsing, the angel's mere presence melting its flesh faster than it could regenerate. The angel simply had to glide forward to force the beast back toward the elevator. I lay there, clutching my ears, desperate to escape the soul-shattering screeching that I felt in my very bones. Then the creak of the gate, the slam, the slow groan of a long descent back into the abyss, and finally, a total, profound silence fell over the lobby. When I opened my eyes, the angel was gone. Lying on the floor was a check. In the top left corner was something illegible, written in dense Hebrew, and below my name was the line, 73.25 out of 100. In the memo line, it read, hazard pay, and in the corner, in perfect, flowing script, P.S. In the future, please refrain from taking the Lord's name in vain. Thank you. According to the University of Vermont, a mature sugar maple can produce as many as 200,000 leaves in a single season. The town of Mount Enos was set in a sea of these trees which stretched for miles across the hills, rolling high up onto the mountain from which the town took its name. Memories of my childhood in that small town feel different from the rest of my life. Enchanted, beguiling, whatever the word might be. The forest was a constant, nearly magical presence in our lives, imposing itself on every horizon. People would tell stories of nymphs who planted the unfathomably massive orchard, stories of beasts which clung to tall trunks with vicious claws, waiting to drop on any who wandered too close. I never believed the stories, though I understood why people told them. Something so majestic as the forests of Mount Enos seemed to demand reverence. I used to believe that God reveals himself to us in grand displays of natural beauty, watching the billions of tiny, verdant sprites, dancing in the late summer winds as the sun set far beyond, and the dazzling blizzards of fiery reds and vibrant yellows mixed throughout, with shades of somber orange under autumn's dying sun. These moments felt to me like looking upon his face. Nowadays, I live in Arizona. We could all see the signs of what would later be hailed as a miracle as early as March that year. At first, nobody could quite put their finger on what had changed about the tree line. No large swath had fallen, and no new copse had grown. To the untrained eye, the difference was both unmistakable and indiscernible. John Ratley, proud proprietor of the Mount Enos Nursery, was the closest thing we had to an arborist in the town of 500. He was sent out to examine the trees, and when he returned his eyes were bright like those of a child. It's magnificent. Ah ran like ribbon, laced through his every syllable. You see, the trees are in their budding season. Each bud represents a new branch and new growth. Now, ordinarily, we'd be seeing somewhere in the range of 50 to 200 new buds per tree per season. He seemed to suddenly realize that he'd outpaced his breath, drawing in a large puff of air before continuing to speak. This year, each tree is plastered with the suckers. I'd estimate upwards of 14,000 new buds per tree. Old mister. Ratley looked around the room, hoping to see that the gleam in his eye had become infectious, but nobody cared anymore. The mystery had been solved. The fun was over. Mister. Ratley offered up a meek, "It'll be a green summer," as we all filed out of the town hall and back into the humdrum of our daily lives. He was right. It was impossible not to notice how much more alive the forest had been that summer. The new branches crossed each other in wild intersections, each fighting for every inch of available space. By the end of August, the trees had grown thicker and heavier than ever before. The overabundance had been a great source of beauty. I've never seen such a decadent array of vibrant, verdant shades before or since. The winds of summer shattered into tiny fragments against the foliage which had grown so thick that the leaves behaved as if they were a singular, solid object. Strong gusts were transmuted into gentle breezes as they wove their way through the near-infinite green gauntlet, causing the leaves of the trees to vibrate gently with the pathetic force which remained. I spent a lot of time that summer staring out at the tree line and asking questions to the empty air. Questions of who I am, why I'm here. The kind of questions that come to mind when you're looking God in the eye. I never received any reply. The weight of the excessive growth forced the trees to sink deeper into the earth, their roots stretching up and out as if clinging to the edge of some infinite chasm, as if afraid they might fall. The word weighed heavier on all of us as the season drew near. At the time, we thought it would be little more than an inconvenience. We had no idea what was in store. First, there came a pale, sickly yellow. Then, rich, crimson reds began to leer out from deep within the green tree line. By mid-September, the color had largely bled away, leaving behind desiccated remnants of what once was. Deep, modest, earthy browns and orange like rust grew dominant in the forest. The leaves had dried, but the weakened westerly winds had not the strength to shake them loose of their perch. It was mid-October before the first of them lazily listed down to the earth below, falling at the feet of its mother. The wind, affronted by the stubbornness of the foliage, summoned up all the strength it had ever known. A vicious, persistent gale from all directions ripped its way through the autumnal labyrinth of branch and leaf. The winds whooped and wailed together as they brought ruin down upon the forest, and there, caught in the middle, was the town of Mount Enos. From all sides, titanic walls of dying plant matter rose, high enough to block out the sun. In my memory, the rays of the sun cast each individual leaf in stark relief as it oozed through the space between them. It would have been awe-inspiring, though frightening, but we were not allowed even enough time to react. A moment after we saw their rise, they were upon us. There was a rustling sound, like the jittering wings of 1,000,000,000,000 locusts. Then a jolt shook the foundations of my home, joists and beams flexing horribly as the collective weight draped itself across the house. The walls bowed visibly inward, and I heard the shatter of glass as the tidal wave of autumn's newfound fury pressed in from all sides. A horrible realization struck me. My wife had been outside. The dahlias outside our bedroom window needed to be dug up for the winter. The tubers will freeze and die otherwise. I found her there, in the window. Her body had been hopelessly and brutally squeezed against the vinyl siding of our home, the one she had begged and pleaded for despite it being outside our budget. Through the window pane, a deluge of leaves spread itself across the space where her neck used to be. The torrent had driven her throat against the shattered glass of the window. Brutal, horrible, crimson splashed itself across the growing pile of decaying plant matter. I felt my soul shatter into a million miserable pieces as I lifted her severed head, bringing her forehead to rest against my own. I held my eyes closed as tightly as I possibly could. I screamed and sobbed and raged loud enough to shame the winds outside, which now whistled terrible reverie through the bare, interwoven branches of the forest. I wanted to drown out all else beyond the feel of her rapidly cooling skin against mine, begging the warmth that was left there to hold on for even a minute more. As you can imagine, finding my wife like that made a terrible introduction to the isolation of being trapped beneath the ever-growing banks of crisp, golden leaves. The colors themselves had become completely imperceptible as the leaves above blocked more and more sunlight. It wasn't long before I was left in abject darkness. I had no way to appreciate the true scale of it at the time. I knew my house was definitely buried completely, but I had no idea that the pile stretched another 20 feet beyond the second-story roof. I stayed in darkness for what was either 6 weeks or 6 days. The inky blackness of my grief wrapped itself around me, causing me to feel as if I were among my own kind as I stood there in the void which used to be so full of love and light. Food wasn't an issue, as I hadn't been eating much at all. I'd fumble for a can of beans in the dark, bash it against the linoleum floor until it burst, and then blindly slurp the contents. One night as I fumbled through the pantry, I felt my hand land upon something waxy and smooth. A candle. It felt like I hadn't seen light in 1,000 years, and the idea of it kind of scared me, despite this strange trepidation. I didn't hesitate to search desperately for hours to find a box of matches. When I finally got it lit, I sat beside the candle as if it were a campfire. I fell asleep there. When I woke up, my breathing had become difficult. I could feel, by the way, that my lungs burned, that oxygen had become scarce. The candle's fire had eaten too greedily of the air while I slept, leaving next to nothing for my respiratory system. I was desperate, the cilia in my lungs clawing and clamoring for every available iota of breathable air. The decision I made was one rooted in panic, but I don't regret it. I threw open the front door and laid the faintly burning candle at the precipice. The fire spread with a vengeance, as if offended by the sheer amount of unburned flammable material. I slammed the door in horrified realization as the fruits of my panic spread viciously across the massive pile. The sound of it was completely indescribable. Each leaf brought fire to dozens, more, all crinkling and folding in upon themselves, sending embers far off to spark new colonies of flame. The air began to circulate as heat moved throughout the pile, bringing a rush of oxygen as the leaves, which held my wife against my home, burst into flame. I had no choice but to let it burn. The pictures, the memories, the bed we shared, her severed head. I had to let it all go, or face annihilation. I slammed the door closed and jammed a wet towel against the crack under the door, begging for her forgiveness as I sobbed in fear. In the end, for whatever reason, my home was one of the few spared. The fire had torn through the town of Mount Enos, killing 300 people in all. The cleanup was slow and gruesome. Many had been making their commute when the leaf storm fell over our town. Mr. Ratley, the pseudo-botanist from before, was found with his head trapped in the jamb of his car door. The coroner thinks he was trying to climb out when the weight shifted and pinned him. Many others were found trapped in their cars, dead of apparent asphyxiation. As I assisted those of us who were left in pulling body after body from the derelict vehicles, unbuckling safety belts and car seat straps alike, and looking into countless lifeless eyes, I could only think one thing. I don't regret starting that fire. I'm no stranger to sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucinations, since I've been having them for quite some time, ever since I was a child. Almost every night for the past few weeks, right as I fall asleep, I see someone sitting on the chair by my desk. It's an unfamiliar man who I'd say looks like he's in his mid-30s. He's got shabby hair, wears a long-sleeved round-neck shirt and a pair of dirty trousers. He's got a very forgettable look. I say this because I've seen much worse in my nightmares. He often watches me, mumbles stuff under his breath, and acts like he's tired just sitting at the same place waiting for something interesting to happen. It's always vivid, and there's been several instances where I mistook him for an actual person in my room. Of course, he's not real, because he just disappears into thin air whenever I get slightly more conscious or aware of what's happening. In my more recent encounters with him, he'd say the most random things. You keep waking up. Too fast. I won't hurt you. Not at all. Hold still if they scratch. Just don't resist, please. None of his mutterings make sense. The best I can do is ignore him. In fact, I ask him to keep quiet, and he does happen to obey. While most of what I've been sharing with you here sounds typical in sleep paralysis and similar dreaming states, his behavior has been getting quite uncannily human recently. The recent encounters have become more silent, and I don't hear him saying anything decipherable. Not that I want to, but because it's not typical of my experience with this entity. Now, like I said, whenever I'd wake up fully, the room would be empty. It was easy to dismiss this as some sort of harmless, yet disturbing state of sleep. About a week ago, I woke up in the middle of the night because something was biting me. Not a single bite, like dozens of bites. I flipped on my lamp and saw a cluster of those tiny black ants all over my sheets. I brushed them off, killed quite a few, and checked everywhere for crumbs or spills, but I could find nothing. My bed was clean. I woke up in the middle of the night to strip the sheets, vacuum, and spray peppermint to ensure they won't be back soon. I even taped the legs of my bed with Vaseline to trap any climbers. The next few nights, the same thing happened. The bites came in straight little lines down my calves and forearms like a dotted path. I didn't notice that pattern until later. The next morning, I called an exterminator. They checked my house, the walls, the vents. Nothing. There was no nest, nor was there a food source. Here's what messed me up. The ants only appeared when I was asleep. When I stayed awake for half a night, not a single ant crawled out until an hour after I gave up and slept. I told myself the ants and the man must be connected. Maybe some sort of dream feedback loop? Maybe the bites were real, but my brain was filling in the rest. 2 nights ago, the man returned. He spoke, more clearly than ever as he sat nonchalantly by my desk. I remember because I knew I was awake when I heard him. I had just drifted off when he said, "Don't open your eyes yet." I remember thinking how that was a weird dream sentence. He continued, his voice deeper than usual. "Just let them finish you this time." My skin crawled. I forced myself fully awake. My heart was pounding. I opened my eyes, and he vanished, as usual. But the door to my closet was slightly open. I never leave it open. I hate it when they're open at night. It's a superstition from my childhood and a rule I still follow. I flipped the lights on and drew enough courage to investigate the closet. There was nothing out of place in it. I slammed its door shut and tried to sleep again once I killed the lights. Tonight is why I'm writing this. I woke up to the feeling of ants crawling in my mouth. Not near my mouth. In it. I gagged and spit them out, scrambling to turn on the lamp, thrashing wildly. I felt them all over me, hundreds of them stinging along my ribs and down my thighs, even clinging on the skin below my eyes. I couldn't control the pain, but as soon as I sat upright, the ants began moving, not away, not scattering like normal insects. They crawled in a perfect line off my body and across the bed. I froze. I watched them form a thin black trail that led directly to the closet door, which was open. It wasn't a crack this time. It was wide, and there was someone sitting inside. The man. His legs were folded neatly, knees up to his chest, hands resting on top. His posture was unnaturally stiff, too straight and like he was balancing something on his head. His eyes, I can't explain it right. They just didn't blink. They didn't gaze. They vibrated, twitching in the wrong way. They shined like idle wells of water in the dim light. He wasn't looking at me. He was following the ants. The trail led right to his feet and into his trousers. I was fully awake, and I knew there was no dream fog, no drifting, and no paralysis. The bites, scratches, rashes, and unbearable itching ringed my entire body. I felt numb. He was still there. He lifted his head, just a little. The tiniest movement, like a dying animatronic. In his quiet, almost bored voice, he said, "You woke up too early." Again, without a second thought, I sprang off my bed and ran, hoping for this nightmare to end, for the man to disappear like he always did. I bolted out of the room as I grabbed my phone. I sprinted across the living room toward the slider door to get outside, and that's when I noticed the glass. It wasn't just cracked, it was shattered, outward, as if someone had broken it and slipped inside from across the yard. There were footprints in the dirt outside, bare ones, a long pair, leading towards the inside. For a second I just stood there, staring at those tracks in the dirt, my breath fogging. I don't know why, but the thought hit me all at once. I had ran right past whoever had broken in. I'm standing in the cold outside, in my backyard right now. I can still see my bedroom window from here. The closet light just turned on. I'm calling for help. My husband whispered through the baby monitor, "Someone's in the house." My eyes snapped open. Darkness. Quiet. Did I dream that? I reached for Michael. The sheets were cold. "April," he whispered again, somewhere off to my right. "Someone's in the house. You need to leave." "Wait," he was whispering through the baby monitor. From the baby's room. Oh, God. Someone was in the house, and I was alone. My panic spiked. I threw off the covers, ready to spring out of bed when the bedroom door squealed open behind me. I pulled the covers back up, pressed my head into the pillow. Heavy footsteps neared the bed. Then the covers lifted, and cool air brushed the bare skin on my legs. The mattress dipped under someone's weight. Then the intruder crawled under the blanket. A warm body pressed against my back, and hot breath tickled my neck. I trembled. An arm slid around my chest and locked me in, holding me from behind. On the bedside table, the baby's crying crackled through the monitor. Fingers slid through my hair, and the intruder's lips brushed my neck. A deep voice whispered, "Wake up, April. It's your turn." I screamed and threw myself off the bed, slamming against the wall. The bedsheets crinkled as the intruder crawled across the bed toward me. The bedside lamp clicked on. My husband's face stared down from the edge of the bed. "April? Oh my God. Are you hurt?" Unbelievable. He'd scared the hell out of me. "Am I hurt?" I said. "Yes, I'm hurt. How could you do that to me? I was just saying it's your turn to check on the baby." "What are you talking, Ab?" The baby monitor crackled. "April," the voice said, "I'm taking Holly out of the house. Get out safely." We both stared at each other, horrified. Michael swung his legs off the bed, but I hit the floor first. I reached under the bed for the gun box. His feet scuffled around to my side of the bed. My hand struck solid wood. I scooped the box out, snatched the pistol, and clicked the safety off. "Give me the gun," Michael said, reaching down. I slapped his hand away and stood. "No time. I got it. Just go. Go." With a couple pushes, I got him running out of the bedroom. Michael slammed the nursery door open. Behind the baby's crib was an open window. The dark silhouette of a man stepped out of it with our baby in his arms. "I have a gun!" I shouted. The man froze one leg in, one leg out. My husband caught the man by his shirt and yanked him back inside. I flipped on the light, and my heart dropped. This man was also my husband. Two identical men stood side by side, each staring at the other in equal confusion. Their mannerisms were identical. April, the one holding the baby, said, "Put the gun down." "No, you put my baby down." He blinked, then nodded. Gently, he eased the baby back into sight of them, the bassinet. She scrunched up her face and let out a little scream. "Now walk over there," I said. "Both of you." I nudged my gun at the wall. They walked over, watching me with fear in their eyes. April, the one who'd just laid down the baby, said, "Look at me. We've spent our whole lives together. We made her," he said, eyeing my baby girl. "Come on, you know I'm your husband." "No," the other one said, taking a step closer. I aimed the gun at him, but he advanced and pushed his chest against my gun. If someone was in the house, I would never, ever leave without you. I would protect you, no matter what. It's me. Now give me the gun. I shook my head, blinking away tears. "April," he said, "if you really think I'm lying, go ahead. Shoot. Because if you really can't tell the difference, if you really think I'd leave you, I've failed as your husband. So go on." I felt the rise and fall of his chest shift, the gun with each breath. I couldn't do it. My heart told me it was him. He slid the gun from my fingers. "Thank you," he said, then turned, aimed, and shot the other one dead. We dug a hole in the backyard. Once it was deep enough, we dragged the clone's body in and covered it with dirt. The next day, I was in shock. I spent the entire afternoon inside the nursery with the baby in my arms. I didn't want to let her go, not even for a minute. Around dinner time, Michael peeked his head in and said I needed to eat. I said I wasn't hungry. He nodded, turning to leave, but hesitated. Then he approached us. He was looking down at the baby. He brushed his fingers through her hair, then let out a chuckle. "What's so funny?" I asked. "It's just, our baby is the luckiest baby in the world." "Yeah? Why's that?" He lifted his eyes to meet mine. "Because Haley has the best mom in the world." He traced a finger along my cheek, then walked out and clicked the door shut. My breath caught in my throat. My chest tightened. I set the baby back on her mattress so I wouldn't drop her. A mixture of dread and panic flooded my mind all at once. Because our baby's name isn't Haley, it's Holly. I've tried pretending it was just a fever, hallucination, trauma. But I remember the night I died, every second of it. I had been traveling through England on business for my family trade arrangements, finances, things I'd been groomed for since birth. I was supposed to meet a partner near the market square, but the town had begun dissolving into chaos. The plague wasn't just killing people, it was tearing the place apart. People stumbled through the narrow streets, coughing blood, screaming prayers, crashing into one another like terrified cattle. The bells didn't stop ringing. The air tasted like rot and smoke and fear. One of them slammed into me. A woman, or what was left of one. Her eyes were milky, unfocused, her veins blackened like ink bleeding beneath the skin. She collapsed against me, and her breath rattled in her chest before she coughed blood across my cheek and collar. It was hot, thick, wrong. I shoved her off so hard she cracked her skull on the stones. My stomach lurched, not out of pity, but disgust. I wiped the blood from my skin until it burned, then dropped the ruined handkerchief beside her twitching form like garbage. I refused to die like this. Not here. Not alone in a foreign street. Not as another nameless corpse carted off to some ditch. I was Lucien de Rossi of Florence. My bloodline mattered. I mattered. I ran blindly, the town twisting around me in a maze of smoke and shadows. By the time I realized I was lost, night had already swallowed everything. That was when I saw him. A figure stood at the far end of the lane still, patient, dressed in a long, dark coat. A bird-like plague mask hid his face, the kind English physicians clung to like talismans. He walked toward me without fear. Without hesitation, the plague-ridden didn't even look at him. "Stay back," I warned, though my voice shook. "I am a nobleman. Touch me, and you are ill," he said in a soft, smooth voice. "I am not. You are dying," he continued, as if reading from scripture. "But I can cure you if you accept the price." I should have turned and run, but I could feel something inside my chest, tightening something that whispered he was right. "Do it," I said. "I won't die in this cursed place." He lifted his hands and removed the mask. His face was carved, pale and perfect, lips colorless, and from them, two gleaming fans slid into view like blades. I had no time to scream. The bite wasn't a clean puncture. It was a violent tearing. Heat and ice ripped through me. My heart hammered, then stuttered, then strained like it was trying to break free. Blood poured from my eyes, my ears, my nose. My fingers twisted. My lungs seized. I collapsed, choking on my own blood. "You said you'd help me," I gasped, tasting iron and dirt. He placed the mask back over his face with priest-like precision. "I am helping. You," he murmured. "Let the mortal part of you die. When the pain ends, come find me. We will begin the rest of your eternity together." He stepped into the smoke and vanished. But I didn't vanish with him. I woke beneath a sky full of cold stars. The moon hung swollen above me, staring like an unblinking eye. The first thing I felt was the ground under my hands, soft, uneven, warm. Not warm with life, warm with rot. I pushed myself up and felt something burst beneath my palm. I looked down. Bodies. Dozens. Hundreds. A sea of swollen corpses dumped in a mass grave. The English plague pits. I had died there. Revulsion ripped through me, and I convulsed, vomiting across the dead. Their slack mouths and clouded eyes stared up like they knew exactly what I was becoming. I scrambled backward, slipping on ribs, sliding across bloated limbs, but I moved too fast, too neatly. My balance wasn't my own anymore. A puddle nearby caught my reflection in the moonlight. My skin had turned the same marble white as the creature who bit me. My eyes glowed faintly, and inside my mouth, new edges, sharp, waiting. I should have screamed. I didn't. Something vibrated beneath my ribs, power coiled tight, hungry. The hunger hit me so violently that I nearly collapsed. It wasn't a craving. It was a need, a demand. I staggered toward the edge of the forest until the small English town appeared again, changed, unfamiliar, but still the place where I had died. A house near the road pulsed with warmth, heartbeats, breath, living blood. I reached the window before I knew I'd moved. Inside, a family slept peacefully. I slid the window up. It wasn't wide enough for any human, but my joints loosened, dislocating with soft, wet cracks as I folded myself through the narrow gap. No pain, just the mechanical pop of bones. I put myself back together quietly in the dark. The father lay closest. His pulse throbbed beneath thin skin. I leaned down, opened my mouth, bit. His blood hit my tongue like fire and thunder and music all at once. I drained him. Then the mother, then the children. When I was done, the house smelled of iron and warmth and silence, and for the first time in both of my lives, I felt whole. That was the night Lucien de Rossi died, and the night something perfect replaced him.